G'day everyone. Before we hop into today's vlog, I just want to remind you to please hit that subscribe button. From now on, I'm going to be putting out daily online poker vlogs. We're going to be tracking my process as I play these 6 max online poker cash games. So far, we've moved up from 1-2 to 2-5, and we're going to keep tracking the process, hopefully as I move up further. But even if I don't, you'll get to see me fall flat on my face 6 out of 7 days of the week. Make sure you hit subscribe so you get the vlogs as they come out. But for now, onto the vlog.
G'day everyone, welcome back to the vlog. It is currently 4:45 AM here in Melbourne. I'm getting ready to go play some 2-5 yet again today. Going to be 5-tabling to try and get to that 1,500 hands of A grade level play. First though, I'm starving, so I'm going to cook up a feed. Let's go. Okay, so it's about 7:15 AM at the moment here in Melbourne. I've just got my full feed in. As you can tell by the time, it did take a while to cook that breakfast. Ended up having sweet potato and chicken. Did taste really good though, so kind of worth the time effort. Just going to be a bit of a rush today to try and get in that 1,500 hands of A grade level play. Going to be 5-tabling the 2-5 online poker games. The big thing I'm going to focus on today to make sure I get to that A grade level is using the self-talk, make sure I have reasonable responses to my opponent's strategies that make sense. Additionally, I said yesterday there was a bit of an issue where I folded that pocket tens on the river to the king jack. I'm going to make sure that I am defending my checking ranges and not just check folding because my opponent is representing a strong hand, because I think that probably is a good play at the 1-2 level, but at 2-5, the fact that the guy did have king jack, obviously people are going for it and bluffing aggressively, so I do need to be more cautious about defending my ranges. But overall, still important to make disciplined folds when the spot is good for it. With that out of the way, it's time to go play some poker. Let's go. Okay, so it is about 10 to 4 in the afternoon here in Melbourne at the moment, and I've just wrapped up my 3rd poker session for the day. That's right, did end up playing a total of 3 sessions today instead of 2. Originally the plan was to only play 2 sessions, but sort of at the 2-hour mark of the first session this morning, I did start to feel a little bit tilted, so I decided to just drop everything. I'm going to come back and play more later, even if I have to break today's sessions up into 3 different parts. And that's what I ended up doing. Unfortunately, it did not cost me volume because I did end up playing 5 hours and 28 minutes today for a grand total of 1,609 hands. So absolutely smashed the 1,500 hand goal. I did end up losing 605 across the course of the 3 sessions. So whilst it didn't affect the volume I put in, splitting it into 3 parts, perhaps it did affect results. In terms of my gameplay grade across today's sessions, I'm going to give myself a B+. The first thing that I want to say that I really did like about my play today was that I recognised when I was going on tilt, and rather than trying to push through it and just exasperate the situation by playing when I was upset, I just put it down, went and did something else for a bit, then came back later in the day and still got in as much volume as I wanted to. So very, very happy that I approached the situation that way rather than playing while I was, ill-affected by tilt. Other thing that I really liked about my play this session, I was very disciplined. I was making good reads on what my opponents were doing and trying to adjust my strategy accordingly. Also was using good self-talk. The one thing that I'm going to have to downgrade for myself for today, and the reason I'm not giving myself an A, is same thing it was yesterday. I was still playing a bit scared money, and I was sort of reverting back to my 1-2 logic where I was making really tight folds on the river, even though my opponents are more likely to have bluffs in their range in the 2-5 player pool. I think after this long, I feel comfortable actually saying that as a general statement, just because they always do use large river bet sizes, and in a few spots I did call and it worked out because they were bluffing, but in a few spots I just reverted back to my old line of thinking from 1-2 and made some really tight folds when I probably shouldn't have been. And I think the fact that I did have a big loss today probably is reflective of the fact that I didn't call off in some of those spots. So can't go that high when I'm still making these tight mistakes, but a B+ does feel fair.
As I alluded to, I still am having issues with reverting back to my 1-2 no limit play style, and I'm still using it even though I'm playing 2-5. And I think some things about my 1-2 game do carry over 2-5, but this specific thing of making big laydowns to try and exploit my opponent, I do not think it's as effective in the 2-5 game. Just like with yesterday's hand history, I've got another one to prove the point yet again, so let's not waste any more time and get right into it. I'm under the gun with pocket jacks. I go ahead and raise it up to 10. Then the action gets to an unknown big blind who decides to call. So we go heads up to a flop of 9-4-3 rainbow. When the big blind checks it over to me, I think I have a pretty clear decision to go ahead and c-bet here. I think sometimes there might be merit to checking overpairs here to be a bit deceptive, mix in a trap, but I think specifically with pocket jacks, I really do like betting just because we are vulnerable to having overcards to our jack peel off on the turn, which will either scare off our opponents from putting more money in with a worse hand or potentially sucking out on us and getting ahead. So I do like betting. I also really like betting large on this board texture specifically. There's not a lot of 2-pair combinations my opponent can have. They can definitely have all of the sets, but beyond that, there's nothing I'm really too worried about that's going to be ahead of me. So I do like betting big here. I go ahead and make it 22. And then my opponent calls. So we're still heads up to a turn, which is the 6 of diamonds, putting out backdoor diamonds. The big blind goes ahead and checks it over to me again, and on this turn, I'm sort of the same train of logic I had on the flop. I still definitely want to bet. I think if my opponent does have a 9, I don't necessarily know that they're just going to blindly call a huge bet, but it's definitely going to put a hand like that in a tough spot, and I can potentially maximize value by betting really large. And obviously this turns a 6. My opponent potentially might have like 9-6 suited, but this card doesn't really change much, so I'm still pretty happy to keep pumping up this pot. So I go ahead and bet 66. Then the action gets back to my opponent, and then my opponent goes ahead and rips it all in for about 480. Wasn't quite expecting that, but now the action's back on us and we have a decision to make. And I want to describe where my head was at during the course of this hand, and then I want to explain where my head probably should have been at. So I see my opponent go all in here, and my immediate thought is, oh my god, maybe they did call with 9-6 in the big blind. That's definitely possible when I'm in click and they turn 2-pair and they're trying to get full value. If I do have a hand like an overpair, which is what I have here, now I'm like, it's also somewhat possible that when I do bet so big on the flop, they're going to be pretty reluctant to check raise a hand like a set. That's probably a good spot to trap when I am showing so much strength. And the fact that I've continued to show strength on the turn and now they're trying to get it all in, it really does look like they have a strong hand, like a trap set. I said 9-6, but they could also have potentially 4-6 suited or 3-6 suited as well as a 2-pair that they're raising for value. And so I decide to fold for that reason because their line does look so strong. But I do think that train of logic is a bit flawed. I don't necessarily think my fold is bad, but I just really shouldn't have been thinking about the hand in those terms because, yeah, my opponent potentially could have a set or 2-pair, but what if they're bluffing? I mean, the turn's backdoor diamonds, right? Like if my opponent did float the flop with like ace-3 of diamond, a pair and a backdoor flush draw, this would be a great opportunity for them to check jam just to put maximum pressure on all the overpairs in my range because my hand is kind of face up in this spot as an overpair, and this line just puts me in a really gross spot with all of those hands in my range. So if he did call with backdoor diamonds, this would be a great line to take. Additionally, the 6 does put out 8-7 suited as a open-ended straight draw. 6-5 suited it was an open-ended on the flop, but now it has a pair, which means it has even more equity against an overpair, so we could be semi-bluffing with that as well. So I really do think I should have further considered that my opponent potentially might have bluffs and semi-bluffs in their range, and then looked at all of the overpairs in my range, and which ones are best to call with. Well, I think if I had pocket jacks with a jack of diamonds, I would actually really like folding that hand, just because it does block my opponent having called a flop bet with like jack 10 of diamonds or ace jack of diamonds, which is that one of those diamond draws they might be taking this line with. But the fact that I do have jacks without a diamond kind of makes me like calling more here because it's going to slightly weigh my opponent towards having more of those semi-bluffs. So I really do think that I should have, not necessarily that I should have called in this spot, but I should have further considered calling rather than just mucking because, oh, my opponent's line looks strong. And it does, but that's not how I should be thinking about it. And that's definitely not how I should be thinking about it at the 2-5 level specifically, because people are mixing in these moves. Regardless though, I did make the lay down with pocket jacks, and then my opponent was actually kind enough to show ace-9 of diamonds. So there you go. Wasn't quite expecting to see that hand, even if I did know they were semi-bluffing. They did turn top pair and the nut flush draw into a check raise bluff. And what can I say? They got me off my overpair, and kudos to them. It was a great play. I'm curious to hear what you think about this decision, so hop down in the comments below. Let me know what you think about that turn decision. Do you like going all in with the jacks, or you like me and you just fold it there? Curious to hear what you guys think. Obviously, I'm still adjusting to these new, more aggressive dynamics at the 2-5 game. I don't think this is a spot that really ever came up when I did play 1-2. So definitely going to take a lot of adjusting for me to get used to spots like this. And I'd be really curious to crowdsource what you guys think about that decision there. So hop down in the comments below and let me know. That's going to wrap up another vlog for today, everyone. Thank you so much for watching to the end. As always, I really do appreciate that. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow. For now, I'm out of here. Peace.